Once upon a time, in a room full of wonders, where every step leads to magic, and the journey of a true story begins here, with amazing guests and true miracles. Please like and subscribe for more amazing videos.
Hello and welcome, Michelle, to our special episode. Thank you for being on our podcast today. We really appreciate you.
You guys, thank you so much for inviting me. Okay.
Let's dive right in.
Okay, let's dive right in. So, my name is Michelle Ledbetter. I'm a registered nurse of 30 years. I worked in hospice for 20 of those years, on and off. And I had a near-death experience 6 years ago, a little over 6 years ago, when I was traveling as a hospice nurse. I was moving from one assignment from Montana and trying to get to an assignment in Texas. And I got caught in a snowstorm. And Florida girls don't know how to drive in the snow. So I ended up going off an embankment and had significant injury to my spine. I had a broken spine, an L1 burst fracture, and a traumatic brain injury. The first time I woke to the paramedics trying to get me from the car, and it was just very foggy. I was kind of in and out, but there was a profound sense of peace that I had, where otherwise you would think that I would be very scared and that sort of thing. I just felt very comforted, very peaceful. My little dog was traveling with me, and so when the paramedics got us both out of the car, I don't remember transport to the first hospital, but at the first hospital they took us to, they did imaging and realized that the injuries were not stable, so they had to move quickly, transfer me to a trauma unit, and we at that point they went ahead and did emergent surgery. But before that, what I started to recognize with the peace that I was feeling is that the people that were actually caring for me, the paramedics and the staff that I was exposed to, almost look angelic to me. I just felt so comforted in their presence, and they were very kind. There was a nurse there that they were talking about having to impound my little dog because we were traveling by ourselves, and she didn't know me from anyone, and she came around the corner and said, "Don't worry about your little dog. I'm going to go ahead and take her, and we'll care for her until you recover and get out." And I just thought, there really are angels here on earth, right? I don't remember going into the OR. The next thing I remember is where my altered reality near-death experience happened. And it went over, I can't tell you exactly where it happened. Time is very elusive in this realm. And so I woke 3 days later to recognize that something had happened in that time. So the first thing that presents to me is I am in a very barren atmosphere. It's very grayscale. There's no color. It felt very dense. For lack of a better word, the only way I can describe it is kind of like a warehouse setting. And I was confused about where I was, and I felt the presence of my two daughters behind me, and I turned to look at them as if to invite them to come with me, and I didn't speak to them, but I could hear they weren't coming with me where I was going. This was going to be my own journey, and they turned and walked out this very heavy big door that had a little window. And so when they walked out and the door closed, I went to that window and I saw them walking away into this very barren land. It looked like it had been kind of mowed down by heavy equipment. And I could not get the door open. And so fear began to really start to rise in me, and I was very confused about why they would be leaving and where was I. The emotions were tenfold what they are in this reality, and I had a couple scenes that were very hard to watch. I had one where I had a patient that I had worked with years before who was HIV positive. I saw him laying on a bed, and the torture that he was going through was tremendous. And so as I'm seeing this, the fear is just rising up in me. And I noticed that there is a little boy and a little girl in this environment with me. And as I turned away from the gruesomeness of what I was seeing with this person that I had cared for as a nurse before, I look over and I notice the little boy and the little girl, and all of a sudden there was like a film, for lack of a better word, that started to move. It was my life review, and I recognized it relatively quickly. It started when I was a child, and my father raised me for the first 7 years of my life, and it started kind of in that platform. And I recognized that it was my childhood, but I'm on the outside looking at it. And as it progresses, we get into, I came from a home where there was abuse, and there was, outside of the home, there was some sexual abuse that had happened at a very young age. And so I was living through that again. It felt like in real time. And although I knew what to expect, I knew the sequencing of events, it was horrible. I mean, as far as the feelings that were coming up, the fear, all those things that I really had not looked at before. I mean, I knew it had happened, but like most people that have traumatic childhood, we suppress it. We move on and we try to do our life. So after seeing the terrible torture of this gentleman, I began to do my life. There was a life review, and I was raised by my father for the first 7 years. It kind of starts out with some of those scenes, and then there was both physical and sexual abuse in my childhood, and I began to review those experiences again in real time. So I am outside looking at my life, reviewing it, but I'm both in it with the emotion as a child that I remember and the emotion that I'm having watching it. So I'm very fearful, I'm very confused, I don't know what is happening because it goes through the details of the abuse that I endured. And there were a couple other things that I saw, things that I had done to other people, and I felt what it felt like to be the other person. And so again, all of this stuff that's coming in is very confusing, very distorting, and I began to think I am in hell. And I turned to my review started to kind of slow and end, and I noticed the little girl and the little boy, and I looked over to the little girl, and as I caught her eyes, there was another review that started coming, but it was not mine. And shortly into it, I recognized that it was her life review. And if you had to put a hierarchy, one abuse being worse than the other, hers was actually worse than mine. And mine was pretty severe. So I'm in the presence of her, but I'm also in her. So I'm experiencing her childhood trauma from two different perspectives. My perspective looking at it, and then the perspective of being in it with her. Now, this was a really hard one to move through because where in my life review, I knew what to expect, right? I had memory of what had happened. In hers, I had no idea. So I was being caught off guard by scenes that were horrific, that was heartbreaking. And as her review starts to end, I look at a little boy, and same thing, another review starts, and I recognize that it must be his life review. And when I tell you that their childhood trauma was worse than mine, it was. I guess I don't know if it was because it was worse on that hierarchy scale, or the fact that I just didn't know what to expect as I am reviewing these horrible scenes of abuse for them, of like bullying. I'm feeling their fear. I'm feeling their confusion. So emotions are just compounded, and I am so very confused. And as I am watching their review, I want out of this because you don't want to watch it. And just as I'm thinking that I can't continue to watch these children suffer, I began to feel a warmth that started at my feet, and it started to rise and almost forced me to look up. And when I looked up, it was the first time that I saw any kind of color, but it was a very bright light that was coming through cracks in the ceiling. And it was like tiles started to lift, and the brightness and brilliance of this light that had a silver, white, orange, yellow, not a color that I've ever seen here. It starts to come in, but it's like pouring. It's like liquid pouring in. And in my fear state, I thought that was lava and it was going to burn me. So I braced for it. I bent over to brace for it, and the next thing I remember is feeling excruciating pain in my back. I holler out, and I recognize I am in the ICU. But I'm still feeling like I'm on the heels of this horrific thing that I have just visualized, seen, and felt with everything that I have in me. I look over into the corner, and I see a lady sitting there who's African American, and I was afraid, and I was like, "Who are you?" And she goes to explain that she was there to keep me safe. And what I recognized later is that with a traumatic brain injury, they reserve sedation because they want to make sure that all of your neuro components are coming back. And so as I'm moving through this altered reality, I was acting it out. And so I was trying to get out of the bed, and I remember I had just had spinal surgery, so I had 2 rods placed, and I had wires wrapping me, and I'd been cemented together. And so I was attempting to get out of the bed. So they had to have physical people there to keep me safe and redirect me back in the bed. I did not know that until I saw her. But then as I saw her, things started to kind of blend, and she turned into my sister, who's Caucasian. And I thought, what is happening, right? Like I'm just, the confusion starts again. And I'm telling this lady, we got to get out of here. She probably just thought I was crazy, right? But slowly, I started to kind of come back around to this reality. When I was more in this reality, and there was no way I was going to tell anybody that I had just been to hell. First of all, I truly believed it. I didn't want people to think I was such a bad person that I went to hell. So I kept it in. I didn't tell anybody about it. And came home to recover, recoup, and I essentially continued a hellish life for an additional 2 years. Those emotions would come up and the visions would come up. And when they would, because I was not good at feeling my emotion from childhood, I would try to suppress it. And I got addicted to alcohol. I got addicted to pain medication because at least I didn't have to look at it, right? I thought it was a better alternative until it wasn't. It became a terrible way to live life. And I had some big final hoopla where I drank myself into pretty much oblivion. My daughter found me, and at that point, I just realized I needed help. I was at the lowest low of my life, and I didn't know how to get out of the suffering and the pain. And so my abusers were connected with the church. So going down the church route was not an option for me. I was raised Catholic. My father married another beautiful woman when I was 7, but the trauma that had happened, the whole Catholic upbringing that I was being exposed to just didn't make sense. How could a God that is supposedly so loving allow such horrible things to happen? So I did not go that direction. What I did instead is I just kind of surrendered and started doing a meditation practice, which I didn't know what I was doing. I just got really quiet. And the first time I got some insight was I was doing a meditation, and I'm prompted to say, looking back at that, how can I see it differently? And what was it trying to teach me? And so just by the grace of love, I was taken back to the horrific scene of my hell that I was in. It was much softer this time. It was almost like I was being gently guided back into it. The emotions weren't so intense. And in the going back to it during this meditation, I was told that those children were my abusers. And I always get teared up right here. Sorry. I try to keep it down, but it just pops up. And the emotion that came was such an intense, overwhelming love, unconditional love that I had for these children, that I couldn't, the love that was coming up when I was told that they were my abusers, the only thing I could do was just extend it to them. When that happened, it was like something lifted off of me that I didn't even know necessarily was weighing me down. And as I continued through this gateway of meditation over time, different things would come to me that would help me understand what that was about. And I recognized that I understood why my abusers were the way they were. I understood why, I had done things that had hurt other people. I left a marriage to infidelity after 18 years. And I also was shown that I recognized why I did what I had done, never really knowing what was motivating me. But in the time that I was moving through that, there was always something that I felt that was missing, like there was a hole in my heart. And so I was constantly searching for connection. And I was shown that my behavior was an attempt to feel more connected, and that the trauma that I had experienced had actually influenced the way I saw the world. And I had no idea that that was the case. I thought I was a relatively normal human being. I knew that there was something deep within me that just felt off, that there had to be something more to life, that there had to be more connection and love. And I essentially was searching for that and making some decisions that really hurt other people. But moving through this, I recognized that the reason why I was doing it as well. I was doing it because I was looking through a lens of my wounds. And when I was, it really had an impact on how I connected with people. So in my life before my accident, I was always looking for people to disappoint me. I was always looking for people to make a mistake, to say, yep, everybody's like this. Everybody's just kind of awful at the core, right? And so because my focus, which I did not even recognize until it lifted, I really could not see the good in people. I couldn't see really the good in life. And I was trying so hard to fill this void. But I was shown that it was almost like I had a pair of glasses on, my wound glasses. And as a child, the way I saw life, being super diligent of people around me, was a protection mode, right? Because you have a human being that takes your vulnerability away. You then see people as the enemy and that they could possibly hurt you. But what I didn't recognize is that I carried that all the way up until I was 53 years old, until I had this experience. So I was really a broken individual, thinking that I was okay, knowing there was something off, but the experience showed me my wounds up close and personal. And so in that moment, I was able to not only forgive my abusers, but I was able to forgive myself. And I saw that it was the wounds that were driving me to do the things that hurt other people. In a meditation later, I was shown that lava, that liquid that was coming in that I thought was going to burn me, was actually the light of God, the light of love, the light of universal energy, life force energy, whatever you want to call that was coming in to essentially allow me to shine the light on my wounds and give me an opportunity to look at it differently. When that was revealed to me, that and I could see how I could see it differently. I could see completely differently. And I had so much compassion for the abusers, and I had so much compassion for myself. And I started to see people in my world so much differently. And so I have a little bit of a different take on all of the whole life and how it happens and that sort of thing. And we can talk about that. But you're absolutely right. And here's the thing. I thought I had forgiven them, and I thought I had moved on with my life. But I did not until I had compassion for them. And I saw the wounds that were in them that caused that. So that completely lifted it. And then I could see the mirror where I had done things to hurt other people in my hurt state. I wasn't trying to hurt anybody. I was just trying to fill a void. But those actions, when you're in that space, ultimately affect other people. So working in hospice, what I started to realize, now I had already been in hospice for many years, but at end of life, there is something called terminal agitation. And not everybody goes through it, but there are quite a few people that do. And it is very distressing for not only the person going through it, but people watching it, because it looks just like I did. Trying to get out of the bed, picking at your clothes. You can tell a person is very distressed. And what I believe now with my whole heart is that nothing goes back with us except for the love that we came with, right? And as we come into this world, we are sacred, holy beings that are divinely connected to the life force energy, God, whatever you term that. And as we move through life and things happen, our little light that we shine so brightly for the first year or two of our life, we start to become conditioned. We are told who to be, what to do, and that sort of thing. And so that light starts to get covered up. And we build beliefs and barriers around to justify our way of being. And those beliefs are so ingrained in us, they're false limiting beliefs. They're holding us back from being the best version of who we are. Where I had a very hard time connecting with people, my belief was people would hurt me. So, and it seems so simple, but it's so impactful in a life of a person, right? And so knowing that we are divinely connected to that has created us. We cannot be separate from it. We are one with that. And slowly, life will cover up our light. And if we don't undo the false limiting beliefs that we believe about our situation, I believe that terminal agitation is exactly what I was going through. It's people's stuff that's coming up so that love and light can be shown on it, so that the person moving through it can see it for the truth of what it is, instead of taking it as something's wrong with me, right? Something's wrong with the person that's passing. You can see the truth of why those things happened, and you release it, and then that's when the soul essence can release from the body and return back to the light from which it came. So that was a beautiful, it kind of pulled all of it together. So now I encourage people, if they are not living heaven-like, if they can't see the divinity in people, if they feel that there are blocks and barriers that are preventing them from living the best version of who they are, now is a great time to do the work to figure out what that is. Because if we don't do it now, it will happen before our soul departs the physical form. And that can be a little challenging. But what I share is, if it's happening to a loved one, if it's happening to somebody who's passing now, that stuff that comes up that is so scary is there to actually help you. And if you will just hold on, it will all be revealed and it will dissipate, and you will see the truth of what life is about, and you will be able to return back to the light from which you came. So yeah, that's kind of the story. I've had wonderful downloads that have happened since then. I didn't have this before, but now life. I recognize that life is working for us, not against us, and those really hard and challenging times are where the opportunity lies for us to flip the narrative so that it begins to show the truth of what's happening, and then to free us. But so many times we get caught up in the story of the narrative that's happening that we don't know. We don't know that those are there to help us move forward. So life continues to present the same sort of things, right? It's going, come on, I'm giving you another chance. And we're like, why is life happening to me? Life is happening for you. It's happening for you to be able to look through a different lens. So looking back now, I have so much gratitude for the entire journey, the abuse that I endured, all of it, because it has helped me be who I am today. It's helped me have compassion for people that are moving through abuse, addiction, all those things, infidelity, all those things I did. I now recognize people aren't bad people, they're broken. And what is that cliche? Hurt people hurt people. Very true. And it's not because they're bad. They came from the divine just like we did. We are divine at the end of the day. In our actions, the hell that I experienced was the hell that I had created based on my upbringing. But when I released that, life just opened up. And the serendipities, the people I met, the experiences that are continuing to happen and unfold, you can't make that shit up, right? It's divine. It's like life will move you and connect you with people that you would have never imagined your life could be so amazing. And so I personally believe, based on my experience and my hospice experience and my altered reality experience, that hell is a state of mind that many of us are living in right now, and we don't even know. And heaven can be experienced right here on earth, in this realm, if we're open to letting go of the beliefs that we have put in front of us that stop us from seeing the divinity in all of it. So yeah, that's my story. So I am very mindful about people's beliefs, and I will not impose anything unless there is an opening for me to step in and offer. And this is my truth, right? And it might not resonate with everyone. So if people are grounded in their religion and grounded in their belief, and they can move through this graciously, then of course I just let that take its place. But there have been times, I had one particular patient who was an atheist and very much living in his false limiting beliefs from his trauma in his early days. He was very afraid of what was to come. He had no real belief in anything spiritual or religious. And so, for example, what I did with him, he didn't have family. As he had shared, I spent many hours with him just talking to him, and I could see that he was very fearful of what was getting ready to come. And so I just felt something call me to ask him, if you could create a heaven or create this experience of the soul departing, what would that look like for you? And so he shared some really beautiful stories about being in the mountains and streams and how he would be climbing a mountain. And there was a day that I woke up early, and I now know life pushed me to go in early. And when I went, I thought, why am I even going in early? I don't even know I'm going in early. And I made up the thing, well, maybe I can just check on the night shift people and just say I was there. But I felt pulled to go. So when I went, he was actually starting his transition, and he had had a fall the night before, and there was some neuro things that were happening that was causing his body to not be his own. He was kind of shaking and moving through some stuff. And I recognized that we were moving in transition. And so I sat on the bed with him, and I reminded him of what he had shared with me about what his journey would look like to the non-physical. And as he's moving through it, there's something came over me, and I'm like rooting him on, like, you're almost there, you're climbing that mountain, you're so close, hang on, this bumpy part is gonna be over, just hang on. And when he passed, what will happen is the pupils of the eyes will constrict way down, so you don't see very much of the black, it's very little. On his last exhale, he would give, he doesn't have a lot of energy, but he would whisper, and I knew that we were on the right track, and he was finding some relief in moving through this. And as the pupils constricted down, and then on the last exhale, they dilate. And on that dilation, he had the most beautiful blue eyes. The blue around the dilation was so prominent, and this smile came over his face, and I saw a film-like energy leave his body. In my entire nursing career and working with people in hospice, that had to be one of the most beautiful passings from the physical to the non-physical. And it wasn't around any kind of traditional belief. So I know that we are all light, and that he had that light in there too. It was just covered up from his lifetime of thoughts and beliefs and things. And we will continue that and perpetuate that to make ourselves right about the unconscious that we believe about ourselves. You know, everybody's out to hurt me. He actually thought that somebody was putting things in his body to hurt him. You know, I mean, it was that he was that broken. And so that was an opportunity that we stepped out of the norm. I stepped into what I felt called to do, and it was a absolutely beautiful transition. So that is one time that I stepped in. But most of the time, unless I'm called, I just observe it. And here's the other part, you know, I was a little bit still afraid of death and not sure what was happening. I had always believed that there was some power greater than myself, but I wasn't necessarily tapped into it, and I thought it was outside of me. So I was spending my entire life trying to find validation, love, connection on the outside. What I recognized in a meditation is that it's within. It's the light that was dimmed you turn within to find the peace and grace. And everyone has this. It's not exclusive to me. Everyone has the ability to tap into their divinity within, to the God source within them. It's a quiet voice, but it's there, and it will answer you if you will listen to it. It will guide you. And so my hope in sharing my story, because when it first came out, let me tell you, I was not super excited about sharing my shit, right? I don't want to do this. And it was in a meditation that I would be freed even more if I would just share authentically what happened. Yes, it's been the most freeing thing. And the judgment that other people have about what I share, for me to even tell you that it doesn't bother me is a miracle, because before my accident, I would have been all up about, oh my God, what are people thinking of me? They must think whatever. You know, I was so concerned about what everybody else thought. But as I've been doing these now only since October, but I've done, I think you're number 18 actually. In sharing from my authentic self and knowing I'm not alone in how I was living. A lot of people are where I was. And, you know, how else is God going to experience itself except through us, right? The good and the dark is all encompassing of God. But if somebody explained it to me one time about, if God is omnipotent and living in light and love all the time, that could kind of get boring. Like, how do you know the contrast, right? And so somebody was saying, it's like if you go to the mountains and it's snowing and you're sitting with your loved one drinking tea and enjoying the fire, you can't appreciate that unless you've been in the cold and freezing, right? So it's almost like we are an extension of God. God lives through us, through our journey, and the only thing we're taking back with us is love, but the experience and the breath that breathes us is with us the whole time. And so it's just come like kind of full circle, and now it makes sense, where the religious stuff was like, that doesn't make sense. I can't imagine a newborn child being sinful. They're not. I respect every religion, and I respect people that can move beyond the limitations that keep us down in any religious capacity. But in my life experience, I haven't found a whole lot of them. And so I'm not trying to encourage anybody to believe it the way I believe it or see it the way I see it. And those people that really, I have had some people be really upset because I don't speak doctrine. I didn't see Jesus. But I met divinity. I met divinity in hell. And now that I am sharing it, and I know that it's helping people, I'm just so grateful. Every time somebody reaches out and asks me to be on their podcast. So thank you. I've started looking at the Bible. Now, I'm not a Bible scholar. I'm very new. But when I am reading the words in red, Jesus's words, he was exempling for us the way to live. Every message that he has is about releasing people and forgiving people. And what I recognize now is that when somebody's misbehaving towards you, be mad, they come at you with something. You might be mirroring something for them, but what comes out of them is within them. So when people are aggressive, that's their stuff, right? Where we get mixed up is when it triggers our stuff and we want to fight back. Then now we're both. We've engaged and we've entangled. But now, and hopefully people will be able to look at people in the way that I see people now. If somebody is spewing at you, that's brokenness within them. It can't stay contained in, so it has to come out somehow. When you can see people's wounds, when you can see people coming at you through their wounds, and you get grounded in who you are, you know your divinity, and you've healed your wounds, you can stand in that space, watch what they're doing, separate from you, you're not engaged, entangled, and recognize, man, they're coming from their wounds. And I've been there. And I love you, brother. I can see you're struggling. Instead of defending yourself and trying to make yourself right, it's just a whole different. And then at that point, people won't fight something. If there is no resistance, there's just nothing to resist. The fighting stops. That stops. Now, the wounds are still within. I mean, you've met people who cuss people out in traffic, and they're justified in doing it. People are idiots. But it's not the other person, the bad driver. That's coming out of them. It's showing them that negative vibration, that is life showing us that we got it wrong. It's our internal guidance that God has given us. If we're not living in a high vibration of joy and love, then that means that we're looking at it through skewed glasses, through wounded glasses. Doesn't make you a bad person, right? It does not make you a bad person, but just understanding that when you can see other people's shit separate from your shit and you don't entangle in it's magical. And in my experience, more people that know this way, more people with their light that are shining are drawn to what you have within you. So people that are in those dynamics where they're constantly attracting narcissists and blah, 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 we don't recognize that like attracts like, and we will attract people to us that are on the same vibration and the same energy as we are to validate us, right? It validates our insecurities. It validates our false beliefs. when you step out of that, the people that are attracted to you are shining their light. And so anyone who is, living in darkness or living in depression or having affairs, drinking to numb, I get it. But those are your wounds talking. That's not truly who you are. So don't buy into that you're a bad person and that you deserve to be going through a hard time. It's there to help you. It's there to show you a different way to look at it. And it's there to show you how to look at any situation through Christ's eyes. He never saw sick people because he saw the soul of who they were. He was displaying it and speaking. This is, if you can get to this place where you see beyond people's actions and see them at the core, that they're divine just like you are. I got to a point where, like, how dare I not love myself? I'm part of that divine. How do I not love my person that is standing in front of me spewing? They are part of the divine. Everybody's on their own journey, and God gets to live through us in all of this, to experience all of it. But once again, when we are going back and we are coming out of our physical form, the only thing that goes back is the light and the love that is truly who we are at the essence. Recognizing that person is broken and they're projecting it out because it doesn't feel good to stay in. It can't stay in. I mean, it needs to come out. So recognizing that person is hurting. They're looking through their broken glasses, if you will. But then also knowing your value, your divinity, asking yourself if you're attracting this kind of thing over and over or allowing it to stay in your space. It's not my job to change anybody, not my job to heal anybody. I can just be a light to reflect back to them. But if my divinity and my physical form is being hurt by another person who is hurt, and I have the wherewithal to move away from that, that's my responsibility. And release them in love. I see that you are hurting. I see you think that you're right about what you're saying, but you are coming from a low vibration that is not truly who you are. And knowing your own divinity, moving out of that space and releasing them, knowing they're on their own journey. You don't have to control it. You don't have to change them, but just keep shining your light, and those people will gradually fall off. It's like life starts to take care of that for you. Yeah. And remembering too that they're not bad people. They are divine, just like all of us are. They're just broken. And so the best thing you can do in a situation like that is just to continue to shine your light and move away if it continues to be harmful. And maybe a little nugget will drop that they say, oh, she's got something I want, or she didn't fight back. It might be the opening for their healing. So just living in that place of authenticity. It really, for me, it was about moving out of my head, right, where we are constantly analyzing and wanting to make ourselves right and judgmental, and moving out of my head and totally into my heart and coming from that place. It's a magical way to live. Who knows what people, you can imagine if you are a person who's HIV positive, AIDS, and you're dying. My subconscious mind, even though I was a nurse that would love them and hold them, still deep within me, because of what I had learned from other people, I thought somehow they were flawed. So what better image to come up in my hellscape than a person that I truly, if somebody said, does AIDS scare you? No, it doesn't. But there was something deep within me that thought they were flawed. I had to say that out loud and be honest with myself. I was like, you know what? That really was in there. And so it came up and it was shown right there. You believe that this person has to be tortured and tormented because they've done something bad. What? Yeah, like that is my projection. It was totally my hell. It was my projection. But I believe it was being brought up so that it could show me, girl, you've got some judgment around that. You say you don't, but you do. So I think probably one of the hardest parts of healing is owning that truth of distortion within, right? owning the fact that, ooh, I did have some judgment in there, that I felt like maybe they needed to be crucified and tortured. Or, for many years after I left my marriage and the infidelity, I felt tremendous guilt. I didn't understand what I was doing. And the judgment of myself on that, not recognizing I was just looking for connection, seeing how I'd hurt other people and feeling that hurt. Like I could feel the hurt that I had done with other people emotionally inside as I'm moving through that. But the bottom line was to admit to myself that I was that lost, that I actually acted out and caused harm to other people. That's hard. It's like, oh God, I did that. But when you recognize why you did it, and the grace of the divine shows you that you were just doing it because you were looking, I was seeking. Yeah, it was absolutely the wrong thing to do, but I was doing it on a false pretense, if that makes sense. And let me tell you, it works for a minute, but it never works long haul. It never works long haul. If you're looking for anything outside of you, validation, love, connection, it's all right here. And so you just got to turn back in, get your connection to the divine, and then life, there's no desire. I have no desire. Oh, thank you so much for inviting me, and thank you for this platform, because this is where people can share their truth and their stories, maybe crack some foundations and let the light in. I love it. Thank you.